Hello, welcome to Studio 2. Today we're doing an unscripted video about these two items here. So this is a September 1996 Mazda brochure, which also has Xedos in it. And this is a 1994 Mazda promotional CD, which is... I'll cover that first since there's less to talk about. So this says on the back that it's in collaboration with Classic FM, and as you'd expect, it's got tracks to do with classical music. Now I bought this second hand from a charity shop earlier this year, and I thought it would just have music from adverts, because that's the sort of thing that you'd expect from this kind of thing. But if I open it up, it says in the little inset booklet that that's not what this is. So special, the CD began with Evelyn Clenny. Remember the soundtrack for the new Mazda 323 commercial entitled White. It's not fully understandable. So what it seems to be is they got this person who made the music for this 323 advert, and then got her to put together a new track for a CD, and then asked Classic FM listeners to put together the rest of it. So it doesn't really have anything to do with Mazda beyond the branding, but I do like the branding. It's a good looking little CD, and there's no barcode or anything like that because it wouldn't have been sold. I don't know when this would have been given out to us. There's not much info online. Maybe it was at a motor show, or maybe it was given to journalists driving the 323. I don't know. Anyway, that's the CD. Now on to the main event, which is the September 1996 UK market brochure. So this was actually the first car brochure I bought. I've now got loads of them, but this was the first because this was in another charity shop actually, but it was one that was dedicated to books, and they had a section for old magazines and old brochures. And I was looking through there. I was looking for old magazines, to be honest, but the brochures interested me. I'd never thought about collecting them before, but I flicked through them, and this one caught my eye initially because a lot of the other ones were like 50s and 60s. I'm not really that interested in that era. But yeah, so I got this, and then I don't remember how much it was. I think it was like £2.50. So I looked online to see whether they were that sort of price, and they were. So then I got Rover ones, Mini ones, Ford ones, Vauxhall ones, Dutton, Saab. It grew and grew, and now I've got loads of them. But yeah, this is where that all began. So it starts out with a little known model actually. Not many people remember this, the 121. Not the original 121, that was based on a Ford Festiva, and later was the Kia Pride, which is still built in Iran, I believe. But yeah, this was the forgotten one, the Fiesta. So this was the Fiesta Mark IV, built 1995 to 2002, so it was fairly new. It's only a year old when this brochure was released, but it was a very lazy rebadge. So all it is just a different badge and a slightly reshaping grille. These have more of a sort of semicircle look, whereas Ford just went for the oval. But one interesting thing about this is the 3-year warranty. Now this was better than what Ford offered, even though it was the same car. So in order to check that they were, the Fords and Mazdas being built were of quality, Mazda sent a load of their quality testers to the factory to check each one, because they didn't want to have to pay out if Ford didn't do the job properly. And I believe this is also the only Mazda ever built in the UK, because it was just a Ford. Contemporary surveys revealed that buyers seemed to think that these were more reliable, and they liked them compared to the Fiesta, even though they were the same car. So it could be that the Mazdas were indeed better built for whatever reason, but it's likely just the fact they sold less of them means that the people who owned them cared for them better. But they're decent enough looking cars. 1.8, that's quite a big engine for that sort of car. That's not a diesel. No, it's not. Oh no, it is a diesel. Okay. That's on par then. You know, you have Peugeot with the 1.9s. That's on par. Then we have 323, the slightly weird looking one. This came after the one that had pop-up headlights. That always reminded me of the Audi S2 Coupe. Yeah, this was the one that came after. And it sort of looked like it still had pop-up headlights because it had very small standard headlights. But yeah, they were fixed. So these were built 1993 to 98. So, you know, they had about 2 years left. They're about halfway through their lifespan. They're not that interesting. You know, they're probably the most interesting thing about them is that they were called Allegro in some countries, which, you know, they look a bit different to the Austin, but I guess they both have a kind of similar shape from the side, you know, both fastback hatchbacks. So now you can get these, as it says here, with the 2-litre V6. Not the smallest V6 that you could get in a Mazda, that was 1.8, but still a tiny, tiny V6. And a novelty for a hatchback. You know, you couldn't really get 6-cylinder engines in hatchbacks beyond like the Golf VR6 and later the BMW 1 Series. So, a novelty. Then we have the definition of just a car, the 66. It's very bland, there's not much to talk about, which might be why it was rebranded so many times. So if you've watched my video that came out recently about the 6 different brands that Mazda released, you know, 7 including Mazda itself, this came up a lot. So this was badged as, this was slightly restyled as the AutoZam Clef, which was, if I'm remembering correctly, AutoZam's only model that they had control over. You know, that wasn't just a rebadged Suzuki or rebadged Mazda. It actually looked different from this. Still boring, but it looked different. It was also the Infini MS6 with a lot less restyling. It was just simple rebadge. But that was only the hatchback version. They offered the saloon as well, but it seems that you could only get the higher trims as hatchbacks, which is odd. You know, usually you'd expect the saloons to be the higher tier ones, but maybe it's copying things like the Ford Granada or the Rover 800, which I prefer actually. So these were built 1991 to 97, so you know, they had a year left. They were near the end of their production. You'll notice as I go through this brochure, there's a lot of cars that would have gone out of production the year after this. I guess it's just Mazda were in a state where they had a lot of they had a dated range, you know, like Rover in the 2000s. The final thing about this 66 is that I believe it was the first Mazda built in America. That could be wrong, but I think this is what it was. Now we get onto the much more interesting stuff, so the MX-3, MX-6 and MX-5. Odd that they've chosen to list the MX-6 before the MX-5. That's weird, because usually, you know, go up in terms of numbers, but I guess the MX-5 was more substantial, more famous, sold better, so it deserved a bigger spot on the page. Just slightly odd formatting. So it lists all the different engines of the MX-3, including the 1.8 V6, which is what I was talking about earlier. That was Mazda's smallest V6 and one of, if not the smallest V6 in a production car. Certainly in the last, you know, 30 years, because this brochure's almost 30 years old now. So this range of cars, they look good. Did they look dated by 1996? Yes. Were they? Yes. You know, 1991, 1992, is it 1990? It might be 91 as well actually, and 1989. You know, it was, even the newest ones were at least 4 years old, with the MX-5 being the oldest passenger car in this book. It's 1989, so it was 7 years old. But I mean, it was still selling well. It was all 3 of these cars were replaced in around 1997, the MX-3 being 98, slightly later. But the MX-5 was the only one that sold well up until it was discontinued. And of course it's the only one that received a successor. although in 2018 Mazda did file a trademark for MX-6, so you know there could be something new on the horizon, but probably not. You know, that was 5 years ago now, and nothing else has come of it. The MX-6, as you probably know, was just a Ford Probe, which, beyond the funny name, is just a not interesting at all coupe. The MX-3 was rebadged as a couple of other brands. That this was also featured heavily in the video that I talked about earlier. So this was the Unos Presso, the Unos 30X, the Mazda Unos 30X, and the AutoZam AZ3. But in all of those guises, it looked the same. They didn't restyle it at all between models. They didn't restyle any of these cars actually throughout their lives. The MX-5, I mean, you know, looked the same in '89 as it did in when it went out of production in 1997, pretty much. Now we have a brand that I talked about in the previous video, which is Xedos. Now it is pronounced Xedos. For that, I'm using something from an autocar magazine that I showed within the video. That's from the launch of Xedos in 1992. So that's saying it is Xedos because it was going through the different pronunciations of it. And these are good looking cars. The Xedos 9 especially is probably the best looking car in this book, apart from maybe the MX-5. But that didn't help them sell well. You know, the Xedos 6 competed in the BTCC, which I talked about in the video, but it wasn't successful. It did sound great though, because it was one of the only V6s, I believe. Again, that could be wrong. I'm not a great fountain of knowledge for BTCC. I prefer WRC. But yeah, both cars are interesting. Both cars looked somewhat similar. You know, Xedos definitely had their own, or with the Xedos 6 at least, definitely had their own design style, design language down. Xedos 9 less so. That looks a lot more like standard Mazdas, and it was sold as one. You could buy that as a Mazda Millennia in America. But, you know, both were decent. And just like the other cars, both were sold as Unoses. So Unos 800 and Unos 500. And apparently both were also going to be sold as Amatis, had Amati become a thing. So, yeah, even with unplanned brands like unrealised brands like Amati, there was going to be more rebadging because it seemed like that's all Mazda could do at this time. That's talking about accessories you can get. This is interesting that it's still here. It's the what's it called? Oh, it's not got a name. The test drive slip. So you tick which vehicle you want, and your name and details and that, and give it into your Mazda dealer or mail it off, so you can then get a test drive and register your interest in the car. So that's good to have here. It's weird to see the Xedos 9 mentioned. Like this brochure was the first time I'd ever heard of it, because there are so few sold and so few left, which is a shame because it's a nice car. Then this isn't a long brochure. You know, I've got ones that are like over 100 pages. This is definitely not. The final vehicle is the E-Series, or better known as the Bongo elsewhere. So this is the second generation, which was started production in 1983. So this is the oldest vehicle listed in this brochure. And it was built for another couple of years, actually, built until 1999. And then its successor was built until 2020. So very long-lived series of cars. Or vans, I should say. These, I think I've seen like one of these in person. They do not survive in the UK, and they probably didn't sell well to start with, to be honest. You know, they're not the sort of thing that would have. And then talking about just details, and there's a month and year down here, which is how I know it's September 1996, instead of just 1996. Any other comments? Although it's short, this brochure looks nice, it's well laid out, it's clear, and I assume they would have then offered individual brochures on each of these cars. That's what a lot of companies did during this time. I know Ford was a big proponent of that. They sometimes offer brochures for just individual trim levels. Front cover is nice. I believe that's the 121 because it would have been their newest model at the time. Yes, this, although it's not a great brochure nowadays, like I probably wouldn't buy this now because there's just not much content within it. But I do like it still because it was the first one that I got. You know, that's a big thing. But yes, so this video has been a bonus video to go along with the proper Mazda episode I released recently, as sort of an apology for not uploading in so long, and because I wanted to. I thought, you know, they will go well and they mesh with the same theme and similar era, so makes sense. Okay, so this has been the video on the 1996 Mazda brochure and the 1994 Mazda special promotional CD, and this has been Studio 2. Thank you for watching.